today's talk on vision. So what I know is that there's only one I, there's only one mind, there's only one heart, and we each are part of it. We are each reflections, unique expressions of that one that creates the stars and the seagulls and the frogs and the quasars. That one that is all those things, is me, is each of us. The idea of vision, of knowing that I am not wearing rose-colored glasses, I know good is all there is. I know that if I'm not experiencing good, I'm on the way to it. I know that today my vision is clearer than it was yesterday. My vision of my future, my vision of my past. I am clearer today than I have ever been. And that those words that I know this mean they're true. It is true. And that each of us, as we choose the word prosperity and more and put them together, we get more. Because even just knowing more prosperity, that's all it takes to experience it. This much. So I open my arms today and I welcome more prosperity. I welcome it in ways I wasn't expecting, and I welcome it in ways I can't imagine, because it's not my job to see how that shows up. I simply plant the seed, water the soil, and allow Spirit to grow this prosperity. And with my magical rose-colored glasses, I can see into the future. I have the vision, I have the intention, and I know even today, each of us is experiencing more if we call it. I call it, and it comes. And I'm grateful. I am grateful to know this, to experience it. So grateful, in fact. I don't have to keep talking about it. It's already here. So I let my words go into the law, and so it is.
So it is. So we're starting today our 5-week prosperity program, AKA in old terms, pledge drive, okay? And so we're going to invite you to pledge and stuff like that, and we got Jennifer and Susan are going to talk about that after my talk a little bit, so I won't get into it too much. But my view always in a pledge drive and a prosperity program is to support you in your prosperity. Yes? Yes. Is that okay? Yes. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. Just wondering, maybe somebody, Because I love to have us give out of our fullness, out of our expanding fullness. And the universe is always expanding, so our fullness has the potential to always expand, right? So that's what we're doing. And so we have a series of 5 talks. Today is vision. Then we're going to do gardening. Bring your gloves and your shovels and your... No, don't do that. Mentally. Sorry. The third one is going to be faith, and then actualization, or activation, and then finally gratitude. We're going to have Melissa Felipe and Z. Egloff here on that first Sunday in November doing gratitude. So does that sound fun? Yeah. Okay. For those of you who want to follow along, this is basics out of Emma Curtis Hopkins, chapters 1 through 6. But I'll do it in a whole lot easier and more current language than Emma used in 1880, okay? And you won't have to pull through all the sidetracks that she takes. Brilliant stuff. So in 1994, there was a newlywed couple that decided to leave their secure, well-paying jobs at a hedge fund in New York City because they were tired of living in New York City and the rat race and all like that. They decided to move across country to Seattle. Yeah, good idea, right? The husband had recently read an article that said the internet usage was up 2,300%. 2,300%, right? And so he had this idea, this vision, which is what we're talking about today. This idea sparked him, and he says, I could sell books on the internet. Yes? So Jeff and Mackenzie Bezos drove across country, writing out the business plan on the drive across country to figure out how to make this work. They bought a house, they set up the business in the garage of the house, put a computer there, and initially the computer had a little bell to ding so that they didn't have to hang around it all the time waiting for an order. And there was so it was arranged to ding a little bell whenever an order came in. And within a month, they had to disconnect the bell because it was going off all hours of the time, day and night, all the time. Lots and lots of orders were coming in. They told their early investors, and they had a few early investors, a couple of them were Jeff's parents. They said that there was a 70% chance that the business would fail or go bankrupt. Would you go for a vision where there's a 70% chance that your vision would not work out? Yes. Visionaries who understand it say yes. So as we begin this year's prosperity program, asking you to support, to invest in this spiritual community, in the growth of this community and this teaching throughout the region, and in a world that wants and needs it more than even online books, it's my intention to empower you to become more powerful, more dynamic in your experience and expression of this teaching in your own lives, in our own lives. So we don't just know about it. Those of you who are in Prosperity Plus with me, Mary just talked this last week that she knows about a lot of stuff. We all know about a lot of stuff, yes? But to actually do it, to actually live it, to practice it, to live it, to demonstrate, to know it, to shine it, to be it. So I'll be doing this series of 5 talks to support you in that practice, in that process, and I invite you to practice, to take this seriously, to take this in. I'm going to start with 2 quotes. First comes from Richard Rohr, and this is actually from the agreements, the basic ideas of his organization, the CAC organization, and that is that humans tend to live themselves into new ways of thinking more than think themselves into new ways of living. I'll say that again. We tend to live ourselves, or practice, into new ways of thinking. As I begin to do it, it becomes my habitual thought, rather than I take it from a thought and move it into a way of living. So that's why I invite you to practice. Practice. Start to do this stuff, because it will start to shift you. And then Mark Nepo says, if you try to comprehend air before breathing it, you will die. So we begin with this talk on vision because everything begins with a vision. Everything begins with an intention. And we're going to look at vision a little differently than we have in the past, where oftentimes we teach to have or catch a tremendous vision for our whole lives, make it a big, expansive idea. What is Spirit's highest idea for my life? We're not going to do that today. That's all fine, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. See, Jeff Bezos didn't have a vision of Amazon as the way it is today, right? He wanted to sell books. He recognized that he probably could sell a few other things on the internet too, but it was books. Some of you may know that I worked for Amazon from 2000 to 2004. And I was hired into a new department that we're just starting off called Consumer Electronics. And everybody said, oh, you can't sell TVs and speakers and stuff like that online. Nobody will buy them. They want to go to their stores and hear them. Kept me happily employed for a number of years because they were wrong. We'll talk about that in a little bit. See, it grew step by step. Thomas Edison, when he wrote, I shall discover and deliver for the world a system of illumination that shall completely eliminate our current requirement for oil lamp illumination, did not have a vision of how big that would be. He just wanted to get a working light bulb and be able to then make it available to people for their homes, right? Later on, he told a person, he said, we are striking it big in the electric light, better than my vivid imagination first conceived. Where this thing is going to stop, Lord only knows. And so as we get a vision, as we start our vision with wherever it is, we rise up. We get to the next level. Those of you who know me, have been around here for a while know that I oftentimes love the little Zen saying that when you reach the top of the mountain, keep climbing. When you reach as high as you can see, you'll be able to see more. But it's important to go as high as you can see to start with, because otherwise you're not going to see them more, right? And so we start with the vision as it is now. So visions grow step by step. As we rise, we expand further, we can see more of the infinite potential, but we have to start with a vision that is currently calling us now. Visions come from two things, from great love or desire and from great suffering. Either I really want something, I want it badly and I'm going to figure out how to get that, that's my vision, or I've got this pain going in my life, whether it's physical or emotional or mental or whatever it is, and I've got to figure out a way that's better than this. This is Ernest Holmes talking about that we need to be a people who are for something and against nothing. The for something is, what's my vision? I can be against something. That's a wonderful place to start in many cases. I'm against racism. I'm against gun violence. I'm against whatever it is. But what is my vision then instead of that? Instead of just sitting in I'm against, which does nothing, frankly, what is my vision instead? Where do I want to go instead? And so that's having a vision, that's having a calling, that's moving it. So visions come from great love or great suffering. And they're all rooted in the longing, the call of the soul. See, the infinite is always expanding, yes? The infinite is always expanding. We live in a universe that is physically expanding, right? The universe is always expanding, and it's always looking for outlets through which to expand. See, if Jeff Bezos, if Edison, if Jim Sinegal, who started Costco, and others had not listened, had not caught that vision, somebody else would have caught those visions, yes? It would have shown up somewhere or some other way. The ideas would have found an outlet of expression. See, thousands of people probably read that same article that said the internet is expanding by 2,300%. But only one was paying attention enough to say, I'm going to do something with that. Catching or listening to that vision, which is a process that Emma Curtis Hopkins calls naming our good. And we have a chart. Sam, can you put that chart up there, please? So at the top of that chart, we're going to use this chart throughout the next 4 weeks. At the very top are words to describe what we call God qualities, what we call, got that? God qualities. They're names we apply to different, if you will, colors of the prism of the infinite good. See, above that list, at the very top, there should be a word that just a big old good, capital G, capital O-O-D, good. Undifferentiated, undefined, just this infinite nature. And it's good not as the world describes it. It's good not in the terms of duality, good, bad, but something that calls all of us. See, all of us are moving toward our good. Democrats and Republicans are both moving towards their good, right? Okay? People of all races and all genders, all animals, all plants, everything seeks its good. Now, what that good is, what it looks like, how the form that it takes is unique to each of us. Part of the problem we have is because, that we're going on and seeing in our country is Democrats and Republicans can't necessarily agree with what's the good, but they're all going for what they view as the good. It's different for each of us. Emma says, my good is my God and my God is my good. Now, she's not talking about, the car that I want is my God. No, it's not that level of good. It's rather the infinite good is the infinite. I've often said God is love. Not God is loving, but God is love itself. God is, and God is this infinite presence. It's not some big guy in the sky. It's not the Santa Claus God, It's this infinite presence that is just goodness itself, if you will. What we label as good is goodness itself. It's not the duality. People get confused about why does God show up in ways I think aren't good. And because we have this label, we have this assignment that is conditioned into us, this is what's good, this is what's bad. Have you noticed that what's good and what's bad changes over time? Right? So, and from perspective. So it's not that level of good, it's a good that's beyond that. This infinite presence shows up in any way that we, individually or collectively, consciously or unconsciously, call it to show up. I love Buffy oftentimes says, I call fabulous and fabulous comes. Well, guess what else? If I call sickness, what comes? Yes. If I unconsciously subscribe to the collective or family beliefs about disease, aging, money, how relationships look, anything, that's how the infinite substance shows up for me in my life. So there's no big guy in the sky who's assigning good things and bad things to people. There's only this infinite potential to be formed and experienced by thought. So having a conscious vision engages us in consciously choosing how we want to experience life, how the infinite potential shows up in our lives. It'll do it in any way we want. There's no withhold in the infinite. The infinite doesn't sit there and go, yeah, it's not a good idea, you shouldn't go for that. It just says, yes. It just says yes. Emma says there is a good, there is good for me, capital G good, there is good for me and I ought to have it. And we all know this at a deep level. It's what we do when we live. We know there's a good for us. We know there is good. And it's not a certain good at a finite level. It is capital G good. It is the infinite good. And I ought to, I deserve to, I have a duty to have it. I have a duty to enact the nature of the divine in my life. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here, is to enact the divine. Whether we remember that or forget that, we're still here to do that. And it's not something I have to earn or please some idea of some external God out there to have. It's freely being good. It's just being good, unless, of course, I have to believe that I have to please some God, in which case, that's how life will appear, because I told it to. Yes? Yes? Yes. Got it? Okay. So on this chart, which you may recognize as the creative process symbol that we often use, expanded, we see at the top the spiritual plane. This is where all true vision originates. At the top is the ideal, the nature we call by such names as abundance, beauty, freedom, harmony, joy, love, order, peace, power, wholeness, and wisdom. At that level, all of that exists. Now, it doesn't say how beauty is going to show up. It's just beauty itself. Now, your idea of beauty and my idea of beauty might be very different, and we'll get to that later on in the chart. But at the start, it's just the essence itself. Yes? Are we good? So at this level, it's undifferentiated potential. It's broadcasting, and we pick it up through the next step, which is intuition, the next step down. Ernest Holmes describes intuition as being God in human, God being in us, revealing to us the realities of being. It's the ability to know without any process of reasoning. And he says, God, this infinite intelligence, this infinite presence, knows only intuitively. It just knows. It doesn't have to figure it out. See, we at our individual level feel the need to figure it out. How many of you have had an experience where you just know something and you know it's so? You know, when I was a kid growing up in Catholic school, and they told me that God didn't like anybody who wasn't a baptized Catholic, whether they'd heard of Jesus or not, there was a little part of me that said, nope, that can't be true. So intuition is what we use to lift above the level of consciousness that created the current situations. There's that famous Einstein quote that we can never solve a problem at the level of thinking that created the problem. And so intuition is what gets us above that level of thinking. When we do our 5-step spiritual mind treatment process, it's the first step we go to. God is. What is God? I get out of the thinking about the problem itself, the situation itself, and lift my thinking up. Because otherwise we tend to do what? We tend to cycle everything we know, just cycle it over and over and over and over again. We got to lift up to something else if we want something else to show up. So as we tune in, and people who we call visionaries are simply people who have the habit, who have learned to tune in more frequently to the frequency on which spirit is broadcasting. It's always broadcasting. Am I tuned in to that frequency? So they tend to have not just one good idea, but many, yes? You know, think about Edison. Invention after invention after invention. If you look up Jeff Bezos, I found out something that I didn't even know, that back when I was working for him in 2000, he started a company called Blue Origin. And Blue Origin is a company that's designed to take people out into space. And part of this is because when he was 18 years old, he was the valedictorian of his high school in Miami. And in his valedictorian speech, he said, I want to build amusement parks and restaurants and stuff out in space so that people will get off the planet and stop using up all the resources of the planet and spend more time off the planet. 18 years old, that's quite a vision, yes? You know, I was visioning, how do I get my first date when I was 18, you know? Which is still, by the way, a vision process. It's just that he had a bigger one. So when we tune into this, people who do this tune into this flow of ideas. Galileo had tons of ideas going through him. Leonardo da Vinci, tons of ideas flowing through him. So that flow of ideas, which is how intuition begins to take form. So it shows up then as the third level down, the idea, and connects with the mental plane, which we'll talk about next week. There's one more metaphor that I want to use. Actually, there's probably a couple more, but one especially. We're like light bulbs, you and I. We are like light bulbs. There is one down there somewhere. Yes? Now here's the thing. Does a light bulb give off light by itself? No. Every light bulb has some form of a base, a connection to an energy source. Why do we sing the community song this month, God is my source? Oh. So like light bulbs, we have a base, our consciousness, which connects us to an infinite source. But unlike light bulbs, we have a choice to use it or not, to connect or not. And just as the law of electricity doesn't care if the light bulb is connected or not, it's just going to keep on flowing and following its nature. So the infinite doesn't care if when an individual is connected, even though we really all are, but paying attention to the connection or not. The infinite just continues expressing its nature. But also, just like electricity, which doesn't care about the shape or size or color, will electricity look at this and say, oh, this bulb is weird shaped, I'm not going to light that one. And this one, it's too fat, I'm not going to light that one. Is it going to do that? No, it's just going to light the bulb. It doesn't care that this is an LED and this is a fluorescent. It doesn't care if it's an incandescent. It doesn't care if it's an arc light. It's going to be flowing its nature. And the infinite doesn't care about your color, your history, your race, all that stuff. Who you love, who you don't love. It doesn't care about or judge our religion or any of that. It just flows into the mold we create. Yes? It just does what it does. So, create a mold. Create a mold consciously for it to flow into. See, you're here in life. Have you noticed it? Nudge your neighbor, you're here in life. Tell them that. Remind them that. You're here in life. You're present. You might as well choose your experience. You might as well consciously choose your experience instead of letting others' old, outdated, stinking thinking, as my teacher used to put it, run your life. Take a breath. And finally, one more thing to realize about a vision. When I was doing some research for this and I was reading about Amazon the article that I was reading said they're considered an industry disruptor. Yeah? See, visions are always disruptors of the status quo. And the status quo usually gets angry and tries to fight the vision. See, the Buddha was a visionary. He was first criticized, in fact, abandoned by his companions when he started eating a little bit and said, "Oh, you're not really spiritual. We're leaving you. You've fallen off the path." He was then disowned by his own father, and his own brother-in-law tried to kill him. We all know about this visionary guy named Jesus. He was so well received, right? Muhammad had to flee from Mecca to Medina to avoid basically getting killed or persecuted. Copernicus and Galileo were persecuted by the church. Copernicus had, for daring to suggest, oh my God, the earth revolves around the sun instead of vice versa. Gandhi and Martin Luther King were both killed. People mocked Edison. And I love this, none other than Bernie Sanders introduced legislation in 2018 with the acronym Stop Bezos. That was the name of the bill. So when you catch your vision and you start moving on it, start moving toward it, your inner and your outer status quo will try to stop you. Your inner status quo will say, "Oh no, who do you think you are? You can't do that. That's not going to work out." 70% chance it's going to fail, yes? Oh, look at that. It's never been done before. What makes you think you can do it? All that chatter will come up from your inner status quo. It's so much more comfortable to sit in front of the TV with the remote and popcorn and a pint of ice cream, yes? I can testify. It's a lot more comfortable, right? So it's important to have a vision that's powerful enough, that is strong enough to overcome that resistance. That's why I said that all visions come from great love or great suffering. You got to have enough incentive and motivation to move past that, to drive and push past all that stuff that wants to say, "Oh, just sit down and shut up." In our Prosperity Plus class, we work with the question. The question is, what would I love in my life? Not what would be okay. What would I love? What would I passionately love in my life? To bring that power of love to vibrate with the vision. So that is your spiritual practice this week, is to sit and contemplate the question, what would I love? It may be in overall life, it may be in a specific area of your life. But I invite you this week to start to catch that vision, to start to ask, what is it that wants to come through me in this area? What am I being called to because I love this or I'm suffering greatly here? What would I love instead? And then connect with your base. You're a light bulb, remember? Connect with your base, through your base, with Source, and listen and say yes. Are you willing to play with that process this week? Yes. The spiritual practice.
I would love to.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. So I have a pair of quotes. One is from Ernest Holmes, from the Ernest the Silmar lectures. It's the one we just studied yesterday. We want something beyond just basic existence. How many of us want something beyond just basic? If you're sitting in this chair in this kind of a community, you want something beyond basic existence. I already know that about you. The human mind is never going to be satisfied with the littleness. It is always feeling the wonder and the lure of the unknown, and that is what causes all progress. See, Jeff Bezos' idea of selling books online, Jim Senegal's idea of Costco, of a club that you could buy stuff at in quantity, that whole vision. Galileo's vision, everybody's vision, Edison's vision shifted stuff all around them, far-reaching, far more. The other day I wanted to get some Halloween lights. All my current Halloween lights stopped working, well, almost all of them. And so I said, well, I got to buy some new Halloween lights. So I went to Lowe's thinking I could buy some Halloween lights there. They didn't have any in stock. And I had checked my website for Home Depot. They didn't have any in stock. They told me I could get them this coming week. And so I stood in Lowe's on my little mini computer, which did not exist in 1994, by the way, and ordered from Amazon because they said, we can deliver those lights to you tomorrow. What an idea, yes? That vision, that little idea of I could sell books online has shifted how we do business in the world. Now, that was not the original vision, was it? No. How can I make some decent living selling books online? So to come back to Ernest, we are always feeling the wonder and the lure of the unknown, and that is what causes all progress. Always it is saying, as it looks out to another horizon, go, look beyond the ranges, look beyond that horizon. And it says it to itself. We say that to ourselves. And he goes on to say, I don't care if you're 14 or 100. A person who doesn't have this is dead. He doesn't need a psychiatrist. He needs an undertaker because he is through. And the other quote I wanted is from actually today's meditation or contemplation from Richard Rohr, and he's quoting Dr. Barbara Holmes, who says, we are born with an inner fire. I believe that this fire is the God within. It is an unquenchable, divine fire. It warms us, encourages us, and occasionally asks us to dance. Will you dance? That is our overall theme for this month, is a bun dance. Will you get up and dance your buns? Will you get up and boogie? So we have an affirmation. Say this with me. I listen to the broadcast of good and tune it into my life. I am a light bulb of the divine. I dance the dance of... Okay, well, I added a line. I dance the dance of the divine. Say it with me. I dance the dance of the divine. And so it is. And before we play music, we have Jennifer and Susan are going to talk to us about abundance, about our prosperity and pledge program. Y'all come on down now, you hear?
Whoops. Hello, everyone. Is this on? You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the wonderful Susan Kimmy. And I'm Jennifer.
Hold it up.
Oh, sorry. So, blinged out, yes. In prosperity, we're supposed to step into what we would feel being abundant and prosperous. And of course, I had to get into a dress and get some bling. So we are blinged out. So this is the start of the prosperity campaign. Oh, we're going to come over here a little bit
Move
more.
to the center.
Move to the center. I'm going to take these off, but thank you for these. Are they rose-colored? So this is the start of the campaign. We are going to be up here for 6 weeks, so you have to deal with us for 6 weeks. And then we are going to be asking everybody to support the community. We all love this community. This community is amazing. We're going to be sharing our testimony about why we love this community and why we pledge here. And then we're going to have other people coming up during the weeks. And let's start, we'll come to this in a minute. Let's start with Susan sharing why she loves CSL.
Why I love CSL? Well, about 15 years ago, before I knew anything about CSL or pretty much nothing important that I feel is important now, I was going through the darkest night of the soul. Things happened that were unimaginable. For example, my husband of 30 years left the marriage with a young Latin bombshell. Now, did I think that was going to happen? No. My beloved dog got run over. My house burnt to the ground, and I lost everything. So it was desperate times for me, and things that I had never imagined would be happening. Thank goodness, at that time, I was speaking to an old friend who told me about this community that she was involved with, that she really loved, and I was grasping pretty much anything that sounded good and not prosperous, oh my goodness.
Positive.
Positive. Ooh. what a slip, good and positive. And so I decided to check it out. I showed up on a Sunday just to check it out, mind you, like some of you do, show up on a Sunday just to check it out. And I was greeted by the friendliest people, by awe-inspiring music, and by a message that really, really spoke to me. And I grew up all throughout my childhood, no religion, no spirit. It was a blah in that department, upbringing. And so when I walked into that community 15 years ago, not in this setting, it really spoke to me. The message really spoke to me, and it was the right time and the right place. And it was like a lifeline for me at that time. And so because of that, every year when this pledge drive happens, and I have an opportunity to offer my time, my energy, my talent, and my money, I say yes. And I say it with enthusiasm, and I say it also with great gratitude. And I'm sure that some of you are going to feel some similar feelings that I just expressed, maybe not the horror part, but I have pledge cards. You don't have to rush to the stage right now, but I have these.
And
I have the, oh, yes, and they're also in the backs of your chairs, just in case. But if you'd rather get it from me or Jen, that would be fine too. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Jen.
Susan, that was beautiful. That was lovely. Thank you.
And online, too.
Yes, and online you can also, yes. So I realized that this month is my 10-year anniversary of being here at CSL. So I'm excited. Yeah, so this has been wonderful. This community just means so much to me. I have met some of my best friends. We go out to music in the park. We go out to dinner. We go out to plays. This community just means so much to me. When I started here, I wasn't in a dark night of the soul, but I was definitely sad. I had just ended a marriage, and I remember I came into Nova, and I sat in the back row, and I would just cry. I would just hear something and cry, and then lovely Carol Kautzman came over and sat next to me one day and put her arm around me, and I was like, okay, I'm home. This is my center. And just this community brings so much to us in ways that we don't even realize. I mean, I met Susan. I have a wonderful place to live. I have wonderful friends. I met an ex-partner of mine here at the potluck table of all places. And we dated for 3 years, and that was a very prosperous, wonderful relationship. I've said this before, that this center has helped me overcome fears. Like, my biggest fear was this, standing up on stage and talking. So when I was asked to do this, I didn't think, oh no, can I handle it? Am I going to be scared? No, it was, what dress am I going to wear? That was So I just want all of you to reach into your hearts and realize how much this center brings to you, and just help and pledge and support our center, because we all love it here.
I forgot to say one quick thing. When Jennifer offered me this opportunity, I didn't think, oh yeah. And she said, it's going to be super fun. And the idea of holding the dreaded microphone and standing in front of a group of people is not my idea of super fun, but I thought it was super important. I forgot to say that.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a slide up here that is showing that we have our $200,000 goal. We have already had people pledge, and this number is going to be changing, and we're going to be showing where we're at. So we just started, and it's going to be growing. And the first, is this where we're at right now? Yeah. Oh, what? Yeah. We're at, really? Yeah. Well, look at that, amazing.
We're actually above that.
And we're actually above it because more has been coming in.
Yes.
And then the first people, I don't remember the number, but the first amount of people that pledge, they get a, next Sunday you're going to get a wonderful prosperity. David is modeling it, so. All right, well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you.